Blog post 17. Date, March 7th. Followers, 195. I know I didn't finish the story, but there's quite a lot to get through, and I have other things to do, like read and play the drums, and lie on the sofa like the teenager I physically am, and go over and over the date in every last detail, because my memory is freaking awesome. Anyway, I'm back to tell you more now. Loki is actually on the bed with me, purring like a kitten as I write this, which is really cute. Seriously, I love my cat. Right, back to my date. As I previously said, Noah stepped out of a blackened bowling alley and walked back to the car to fetch me. "What did you do?" I asked when he opened the door. He shrugged in that casually evasive way he has, which I'm already finding chest-burningly cute. "It was nothing. It's a Monday night. There were 5 people playing in there, so I offered to buy them all pizza if they'd leave, and shouted the manager another one for switching the lights off. They've got to leave a few on, I'm afraid, health and safety stuff, but it should buy you a fair bit longer." "You got them to switch off all the lights at a bowling alley so that I could have a game?" "Almost all." The burning in my chest transformed itself into an overwhelming ache that clamped itself around my lungs in a way I didn't think was possible. "Thank you," I finally managed to say. Inside the alley, and I'm not joking here, it looked like one of those scenes from a rom-com. You know, where the whole place is lit up with fairy lights and little round candles in jam jars, and there's this slow music going on in the background. Many of the lights were shaped like bowling pins, and the fairy lights were the red ones there to mark out the lanes, and the music was some cheesy dance remix, but hey, it was the closest I've ever got to a romantic evening, that's for sure. We headed over to change our shoes into the blue and red clown ones they always give you. "What size do you need?" the boy behind the counter asked. He was probably the same age as Glenn, with freckled cheeks and ears a fraction too big for his head. "Rin, meet Craig, the duty manager this evening, and the kind sir who graciously switched off all of the lights for us." "I can't believe you did that." "It's no problem. We're pretty dead anyway. Besides, bound to win me some brownie points with the girlfriend when I tell her. What size was it you needed?" 7, I said. Noah smirked as Craig turned to grab me the shoes. "What?" I said. "What's so funny?" "Nothing. I like a lady with big feet," he laughed. So, to show him exactly what my big feet were capable of, I playfully tried to kick him. "You do get feisty," he said, jumping out of the way. "You don't know the half of it." As we sat on a bench doing up our laces, I felt compelled to ask him about what he'd told me earlier. "In the car," I said, trying to sound casual, "you told me you'd been waiting for this date for 9 years. "I did." "Did you mean it?" I continued to battle with the laces. Why this place didn't use Velcro straps, I have no idea. When I was finally done, I looked up, and he was staring straight at me. "Of course I meant it." "Honestly?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "First band practice. You remember? When Lavisa was singing and we couldn't keep in time with one another, but you just wouldn't give up?" "I remember." "You were the only one of us who knew what the hell they were doing, and you were beating the drums like your life depended on it, desperately trying to get us in time." I was actually so pissed off. "I know. Seriously, it was hot." "You were like 10. I was 13, nearly 14, and just as charming then as I am now, I'm sure." It was impossible not to laugh as I recalled the sandy-haired boy with his bass guitar that looked 3 times too big for him. I don't quite remember that. Of course you don't. You didn't notice me at all once Finn came onto the scene. I pressed my lips together and said nothing. There was no point denying it. "For a few weeks, I actually thought I still stood a chance," he carried on, "particularly as Finn was doing the whole deep and moody act. I thought it'd give me some time to win you over with my humour. But I knew, sooner or later, you'd talk to him, and he'd fall, hook, line and sinker." "Wow." I literally had no idea what else I could say to this massive declaration. I mean, it was insane, and he didn't stop there. You were the crush of my life, and it didn't stop when you two got together. Even when you started dating, I was sure he was going to screw it up at some point, or you'd grow bored of his broodiness, so I planned on being right there, ready to sweep you off your feet. Although my plan didn't quite work. Because I never got bored of him. You didn't, did you? An awkwardness was starting to bloom, but before it could settle, he grabbed me by the hand and pulled me over to the alley. Right. Pick your name. I'm going for no other dream date, he said, typing it onto the scoreboard. Seriously? I think I've earned it. He began typing again. And for you, Rin the vampire? What? Every muscle in my body went rigid. My fangs began to tingle. Why would you say that? You know, because you can't go out in the sunlight or anything. Surely I can't have been the first person to make that joke. First and last. He thought I was joking until he noted my locked jaw and clenched fists and hastily pressed delete. Okay, clearly some bad judgment on my part there. How about just Noah and Rin? Does that work better for you? Much better, I said. Now what followed, ladies and gents, was my first and only major faux pas of the night. I don't really have an excuse, I just wasn't thinking. With the screen ready and the pins waiting at the end of the lane, I reached down, grabbed the nearest ball, and shook it in his face. Are you ready to get your ass whooped? I said. Noah squinted and stepped towards me. Shit, Rin, have you secretly been working out for the last 7 years or something? Why? I said, confused at where the comment had come from. I do actually have a weight bench, but it's mainly used by Glenn or to throw clothes on when I can't be bothered to put them away. That's a 16-pounder you're waving around there, Noah said, staring at it. Is it? I lowered my hand and saw that, sure enough, the number 16 was in bold print, right on the top of the bowling ball. I guess they must have labelled it wrong, I said, then before he could check, sent it hurtling down the lane for a perfect strike. Works well enough, though, I added with a grin. I'm not going to lie to you. Bowling with vampire senses is pretty straightforward. Gone are the days when I used to struggle to hit even one pin. Now it's harder not to knock them over. All the while we played, we were chatting away like we'd been best buddies forever. Most underrated superhero, he asked. Daredevil. Understated and witty and kick-ass. Most overrated. Definitely Iron Man. You have to be kidding. He died saving the planet and was a dick most of the time. Okay, favourite action film? I'm not into them, I said. What? His jaw dropped in mock horror. How can you not love a good action film? Because they're all the same. The man comes over his emotional inadequacies to get the girl and save the day. Nope, I'd rather read a book. Right. It is now my mission to give you a complete film education. I don't think I'm the one who needs educating, thank you. Trust me, I've watched enough of them to know they're all the same. But that's what makes them great, he insisted. The way the tropes are developed and exposed. Come on, you've got to at least let me try to show you why they're the best genre. I half-heartedly agreed, mainly because I was worried we'd never get to the end of the game if I didn't get on with it. Now, if you're thinking I was all demure and did the whole let the man win thing, then you haven't learnt much about me yet. I'll admit, I did let him believe he'd got a sliver of a chance a couple of times. But win? No way. When the last balls had been thrown and the remaining pins scooped up, I finished a full 57 points ahead of him. Beginner's luck, he said. It's got to be. Maybe you should just stick to painting? He flinched. That's it. Round 2, and I'm not taking no for an answer. You really think you'll beat me? Like I said, it's beginner's luck. I've warmed up now. If you're sure, although I warn you, it's way more embarrassing to have your ass kicked twice. I'll take that chance. He'd just brushed past me to reset the game when Craig appeared. "Sorry, guys," he said. "Gotta shut up now." "Really?" Noah gave him his most pleading look. "We can't squeeze in one more game?" With what I suspect was Craig's most managerial expression, he shook his head. "These things are time-logged. I'll already be on dodgy ground with the manager if she finds out I switched all the lights off. She'll have my balls in a bag if I don't shut up on time too. Besides, I need to take my girlfriend out for that pizza you so kindly offered to pay for." With a glance in my direction, Noah sighed. "I guess I'll just have to think of another way to entertain you," he said. It would be wrong not to admit that I might have felt a slight fluttering of excitement when he said that. Although the truth was, I knew I could do with heading back. It's not that I needed blood. I'd brought my trusty hip flask with me just in case. It was that the more time we spent together, the more I didn't want the evening to end. And that worried me. You see, Noah made me laugh far more than Finn ever did. And therein lay the problem. I kept comparing them. And it didn't seem right to carry on like that. As we handed our clown shoes back to Craig, who had now been joined by his girlfriend, and took our own, I decided this was an appropriate time to call an end to the night. "Would you be okay driving me home now?" I said. "I think my body's taken as much as it can handle for one evening." "Already?" I'll be honest, the disappointment in his face made me want to backtrack, because we were having an incredible time. But I managed to hold my resolve. "Okay," he said, and handed me his car keys. "Why don't you go get in the car? I need to use the toilet." "Oh, wait. Honestly, it's fine. I need to settle up with Craig as well. I won't be long." So, taking the keys from him, I left the most romantic date setting I'm ever likely to experience and waited for him outside. Even for someone who lives in the middle of nowhere, I found the car park eerily quiet. The lights were on in the nearby pizza place, and a low bass line reverberated from somewhere, but the car park itself was empty. Even the homeless guy had gone off with his trolley. Fortunately, I only had to wait a couple of minutes before Noah joined me. "You sure I can't tempt you to stay out any longer?" he asked, taking the keys and slipping them into the ignition. "Not tonight," I replied without thinking. "Not tonight?" He raised his eyebrows. "Can I infer from that you might be willing to accept the offer of another date?" Even now, I don't know if I made the right call. Actually, I'm pretty sure I didn't. But I gave the answer I wanted to at that precise moment. "I think it could be fun," I said. On the drive back, we carried on chatting away, although I was finding it a bit trickier to focus. It was the end of our date, after all, and we were both, technically speaking, in our 20s, and I was kind of worried/petrified that he might be expecting us to kiss or something. There'd been none of that at the bowling alley, not even a hint. But there'd been lots of flirting, hand-touching, fingers meeting, high fives, and even a surprise hug after one strike. Now, don't get me wrong. As a human, I liked kissing. A lot. But I'm not a human anymore. And I couldn't shake off the thought that my fangs might pop out mid-snog. Which is why, when we reached the turn-off for our house, I told him I'd get out and walk the rest of the way. "You can't be serious," he said. "It's miles." He wasn't wrong. "Honestly, it's not that far, and I like to walk." Complete lie. "Well, let me walk with you." I shook my head. "Then you'd have to walk all the way back. Honestly, it's fine. I'm fine." For the first time since the drive there, the pair of us fell into an uneasy silence. Well, silent for him at least. All I could focus on was the rhythm of his heartbeat that was getting faster and faster, and the way his shoulders, whether subconsciously or not, were starting to tilt forward. I could see his head and lips moving closer to mine every second. Now, I may be lacking real-life experience in the dating arena over the last few years, but I have seen every rom-com that Netflix has to offer, and I know exactly what it means when two young people are sitting silently in a car after going on what was, undeniably, a bloody awesome date. I knew that any moment he was going to lean forward, press his lips against mine. And although biting him was the farthest thing from my mind, the fact was the excitement was driving all sorts of feelings in me, and my fangs were itching to break free. I didn't know what to do. So I quickly pecked him on the cheek and jumped out the door, no doubt leaving him wondering what the hell just happened. So there you go. That's all there is to tell. For now, at least. Blog post 18. Date, March the 8th. Followers, 2,780. WTF, you guys? Where the hell have all these new followers come from? And why have I got 500 messages on here? Look, I don't know what's brought this on. I've been in bed most of the day and only just gotten up. I'll post properly when I know what's going on here. Although, if I've reached influence status, does that mean I can ask for free shit? Ignore I just said that. Your messages are still pinging through. I need to find out what on earth is happening. Blog post 19. Date, March the 8th. Followers, 3,207. Okay, now I understand. I didn't read them all, but trust me, I read enough. More than enough. I need a drink. And I don't mean blood. I need hard liquor of the 30% proof or more kind. I don't have a clue what it would do to my body. I haven't been drunk since my 17th birthday, but I really don't care. My head's already spinning. I can't imagine that having a drink or two is going to make any difference. There's just too much to take in right now. Blog post 20. Date, March the 9th. Followers, 3,215. Sorry I've been absent since yesterday. I've had a lot to get my head around. One hell of a lot. I don't know where to start, but I have to try. So here goes. For those of you who are on here now, but have missed all the major drama, I don't know how you've managed that, given the number of comments, but hey, I'll fill you in anyway. The police have released a report saying that there were 3 murders at a bowling alley in Essex on Monday night. I've checked the papers. I've watched the news. It's the same place. It's the one that Noah and I were at. I just can't process it. Seriously, fuck, it's horrible. In fact, it's worse than that. I can't explain how I feel right now. I don't even want to be writing this blog. But there's something on here I had to respond to. Something I needed to say because things are already out of control. I've received over 600 hate messages in the last 3 hours. I'm not kidding. Over 600. 48 hours ago, I didn't even have half that many followers. But now you're here, and you all seem to think I'm the one to blame for these deaths. Well, I'm not. I didn't have to tell you about my life. I didn't have to tell you the truth about what I am and what I've been through. I didn't have to tell you about Noah and our date and where we went. Not once have I lied on this blog, and I'm not now. The only thing the papers say is that there was massive blood loss. That's it. No bite marks, no drainage. A knife could have caused that, or a gun. Plenty of other things could have led to a death like that. I did not kill those people. And I'm going to prove to you that it wasn't a vampire. This was not me. Blog post 21. Date, March the 10th. Followers, 4,752. Who knew that people thinking you were responsible for killing 3 people would be the quickest way to grow your blog? Maybe I should share this fact with all those content creators out there. That's a joke, by the way. Honestly, I'm so worried about the conclusions you guys are capable of jumping to. I feel I should double check everything I write. But that's not my style, so I guess I'll have to get over it. Firstly, to those of you who've been following me on here from the start, sorry I've been absent for the last 24 hours. I'm still trying to process everything. I'll be honest, I had hoped that when I came back to write this post, it would be to unequivocally prove my innocence to you. But I can't do that. All I can do, all I've ever done, is be truthful. So I'm going to tell you exactly what I know about everything, and you can make your own conclusions from there. I'm not going to keep defending myself to people who don't even want to believe that I'm innocent. You're not worth my time. I do want to give a shout out, though, for those of you who are standing by me. Those of you who have been with me since the beginning and are calling out the trolls. I see you, and I'm grateful. I just hope that you can continue to believe me after I tell you what I found out last night. After finishing up on here, I went to see Glenn. Unsurprisingly, he had his head buried in a book while scribbling on a notepad at the same time. "Hey," I said, taking a seat at the end of his bed, "have you seen the news today?" He scoffed and looked up. "You serious? I missed school on Monday, remember? It's crazy the amount of catch-up work you're left with after one day absent. Not to mention the fact that my bloody car overheated 2 miles from school this morning, so I had to come off the road, and now I have the first part of my chem lesson to catch up on too. I've seen nothing other than the inside of textbooks. I cannot wait till I am done with these damn exams." Glenn is not someone who rants. He's really not. So this little outburst was majorly out of character. Seeing the stress he was under, I considered leaving him to it, but then in the grand scheme of things, exams versus being accused of murder. Once again, I was definitely the priority. "I need your help with something," I said, feeling my hands shake as I spoke. He opened his mouth and looked up again, obviously ready to give me a standard dismissal, but I guess something in my face stopped him. "Rin?" he said, pushing his books to the side. "What is it? What happened?" "Remember when we were searching for other vampires?" I said. "It's hard to forget. Thought I was going to end up on the FBI's most wanted hacker list with some of the things you made me do." "I know. But the thing is, I need you to log on to the Essex Police database," I said. "I need you to find out about a murder for me." I saw the hesitation in his eyes, and I utterly understood. It was all very well hacking into things when he was a kid, when the worst he might get was a slap on the wrist. But he's got his whole future ahead of him now. And something like that on his record could completely ruin it. For a second, I thought he was going to refuse, but instead he nodded and reached for his laptop. It didn't take him long. Longer than it would have done when he was doing it almost daily, but that's hardly a surprise. I watched as he typed in a couple of rewrites to avoid firewalls, whatever the hell that means, and he was in there. "What was the date?" he asked. "Day before yesterday. It was reported on the 8th. He typed again. 3 people were killed, I added. A minute more, and I was starting to get nervous. "Are you sure nobody will be able to track you?" I asked, as line after line of what looked like complete gibberish on the screen. "No one's going to know we were here unless they're able to manually decrypt an algorithm that uses polynomial factorials to rewrite itself every millisecond." "Is that a no?" I asked, needing a bit more human speak. "We're fine. Now hold on a second. I think I'm in." 2 seconds later, and he hit the return key with even more force than normal. "Triple homicide at a retail park. That's it. Can you get up the file?" No sooner had I asked than his computer screen was filled with official-looking documents, and I was leaning over his shoulder. "What is it we're looking for?" he asked. "I don't know. I'll tell you when I see it." The first details were of a woman, 19, the second of a man the same age, but it was the name that caught my attention. Craig Denver. "Craig?" I whispered. "You know him?" Glenn asked, looking back at me. I'm not sure if I nodded or shook my head or did neither. It was impossible to think about anything other than the nausea that was rising through my throat. "Are there any photos?" I asked. "There should be, shouldn't there?" Just give me a minute. A few clicks later, and a series of thumbnails filled my screen. No, I gasped. I didn't need them any bigger. The first was of the interior of the bowling alley, the lights still on low, the way they had been when Noah and I left. The second one showed Craig on the floor, his t-shirt splattered with blood. Next to him was a girl. Her skin was grey and translucent, her eyes open wide in fear. Behind them on the table was a half-eaten pizza. They'd not even finished their meal. What about the third person? I asked. Glenn scrolled down to the image of a man slumped over a shopping trolley. The homeless guy. Without being asked, he clicked on the photo so that it expanded to fill the whole screen. What the hell did that? He said. Looks like an animal attack. It did. Dozens of teeth marks punctured his arms, his shoulders and a cheek, although nowhere were there as many as on his neck. Chunks of flesh were missing too, showing the bone and muscle underneath. This can't have been a vampire, I said, as much to myself as Glenn. It must have been an animal. No vampire would do that. Not unless they had no idea what they were doing. Zoom in on the other photos, I said, against my better judgment. Craig's injuries were similar enough for it to be considered the same MO. A massive chunk of his neck was missing, although the rest of his body was relatively unscathed. But the girlfriend was different. Other than the teeth marks, the flesh was intact. We looked at the screen in silence. Every hair on my arm was standing on end. I knew Glenn was thinking the exact same thing as me. A moment later, he said it. It looks like a vampire attack by one who's just learning how to feed off humans, I finished for him.
You've been listening to Life Sucks, Bloodsucker's blog, Book 1. Make sure you hit subscribe so you do not miss when the next post goes live. Bloodsucker's blog is written by Ella Stone, narrated by Hannah Lynn, and produced by Ella Stone.